everyone. Welcome to the video. Today we're covering serious online behavior that affected a Discord community I was part of. I'm not here to start drama, cancel people, or spark hate. This video is about promoting accountability and documenting verified behavior to protect future communities. We will go over issues including art theft, harassment, and misleading behavior. Everything here is backed by redacted screenshots and evidence that I've submitted to platform moderators and, where applicable, authorities. This video complies with state and federal laws, including Ohio Revised Code, Code Section 2305.11, and Texas Civil, Traffic and Rent. Code Section 16.002 for defamation, Ohio Section 2917.21, and Texas Section 42.07 for harassment, and federal copyright laws like 17 U.S.C. Section 219. Please do not contact or harass anyone mentioned. All names and identifying information have been removed to protect privacy. This is for education and safety only. If you've ever been in a situation where online conflict spiraled out of control, this video is for you. We need safer communities and better moderation. I'm here to set the record straight with clarity, care, and integrity. Let this be a wake-up call about what online behavior can do to people. And remember, digital footprints last forever. Mistakes online, even if made out of immaturity, can spiral far beyond intended scope. The purpose here is not humiliation, but education. If we want better online spaces, we need transparency. Let's begin with the first major concern, creative theft. Chapter 1, the art theft. Let's start with something that hit home personally, art theft. I created original chibi-style doodles for a personal project. These drawings were shared in a private space, never meant for repost without permission. Later, I found the same art reposted by person A with color alterations and posted as their own. No credit, no permission. When I messaged them privately, they apologized, but never took the art down. This is a direct violation of U.S. copyright law, 17 U.S.C. Section 101. I issued a DMCA takedown to X/Twitter and reported it to Discord staff. What made it worse was their unwillingness to acknowledge what they did. Creators deserve to feel safe sharing work. When someone steals your art, it's not just theft. Well, it's personal. Your time, your creativity, your expression gets taken without a second thought. It makes you hesitant to share again. That fear of theft shouldn't exist in any creative space. What's more upsetting is how often this happens. Artists, especially young ones, face this all the time online. We're told to get over it, or worse, that it's just online. But it's not just online. It's your work, your reputation, and your experience as a creator. I've had other artists DM since this had says, telling me their work was also stolen. Person A's actions weren't isolated, they were habitual. They had a pattern of resharing, editing, and falsely claiming others' art. This can ruin someone's credibility in the art world. It's demoralizing, and it has to stop. Theft is theft, no matter the medium. Whether you steal money or a digital sketch, it's still taking something that isn't yours. For those of us who create digitally, this is a huge issue. The platforms often don't act fast enough. That's why knowing your rights is important. Watermark your work. Save timestamps and backups. And most importantly, speak up when someone crosses the line. Together we can make creative spaces safer. This issue isn't about ego, it's about respect. Respect for hard work, for vision, and for boundaries. If someone creates something from scratch, they deserve acknowledgement at the very least. There's no shame in being inspired, but there's a line between homage and plagiarism. Person A crossed it, and if left unaddressed, it gives a green light to others who think digital art isn't real or worth protecting. If you've ever had your work stolen, know this: you're not alone. There are resources, communities, and people who've been through the same. Document everything. Report what you can. And don't be afraid to take action, because your creativity is yours and it matters. Chapter 2, misleading behavior and age misrepresentation. Let's address a serious trust violation: age misrepresentation. Person A has claimed to be 15, 16, and 19 in different settings, sometimes in the same month. These inconsistencies aren't just red flags. They're dangerous. In one instance, person A flirted with someone under the impression they were both 19. But evidence suggests person A was actually 14 at the time. And this creates a situation where others unknowingly engage in behavior that could be legally or morally compromising. It's unacceptable. We live in a digital age where identity can be faked easily. That's why age verification is becoming more and more essential. Many servers now use verification bots to confirm age before granting access to NSFW content or relationship spaces. That's a start, but more can be done. Moderators need to be proactive when inconsistencies arise. It's not about being invasive, it's about being safe. Everyone deserves to know who they're really talking to online. This behavior also damages trust. If you lie about your age once, people start questioning everything else you've said. And when you're part of a community, trust is everything. It shapes friendships, projects, and team dynamics. Once that trust is broken, it's hard to repair. Several people in our server mentioned feeling betrayed or tricked. It's an emotional violation just as much as a technical one. The ethical line is clear. If you're underage, don't pretend to be older. If you're unsure about someone's age, ask or report it privately. We shouldn't shame people for their age. We should protect each other. But when age is used as a weapon, shield, or lie, the damage spreads. Digital safety starts with honesty, and every community should demand that as a baseline. Some of the most serious issues we've had in this server stemmed from identity confusion. Right? Age is only one piece of that puzzle. Misleading behavior can lead to misunderstandings, emotional entanglements, and, worst case, legal consequences. If someone isn't honest about their identity, they should not be in leadership roles or relationships within online spaces, right? And communities must do better vetting to prevent this in the future. Chapter 3, harassment and toxic moderation. Harassment online doesn't always look like shouting or slurs. Sometimes it's subtle. The slow push out, the unspoken exile. On several occasions, person A abused moderator powers to target users they didn't like. This included deleting user-created media channels, kicking people from VC mid-conversation, and aggressively messaging anyone who questioned them. One DM I received was filled with profanity just because I asked for clarification. That's not leadership. It's bullying. Moderation should be fair, clear, and accountable. We implemented logs, so every action now requires a written reason. Before that, chaos. No one knew who was being targeted next. The people stopped speaking up for fear of backlash. And when a moderator abuses their power, it creates a culture of silence. That's what we saw firsthand. One user told me they felt like they were walking on eggshells. That's no way to build community. Mods should protect, not intimidate. Person A failed in that responsibility. And when I called it out, they tried to flip the narrative, claiming I was the aggressor. But receipts don't lie. We have DMS, we have audit logs, we have proof. To any moderators watching this, document everything. It protects both you and your members. Abuse of power can ruin servers, but transparency rebuilds them. Make your actions visible, and don't let anyone weaponize their role. You were chosen to lead, not control. Let this chapter be a warning. Odd powers aren't trophies, they're tools, right? And when misused, they create trauma and distrust. To repair that damage, we had to rebuild from the ground up. Clear rules, transparent enforcement, and a team that holds each other accountable. That's the standard we should all be striving for. And it's the only way we move forward stronger. Chapter 4, Broken Boundaries and Emotional Manipulation. Online communities thrive on trust, empathy, and boundaries. But what happens when those boundaries are crossed repeatedly under the guise of friendship? Person A exhibited behaviors that often blurred emotional lines in conversations, especially in DMS and voice chats. At first, their messages seemed caring, even supportive, but over time, patterns of guilt tripping, passive aggression, and manipulative silence began to emerge. And when confronted, they would often deflect by making the other person feel guilty for bringing it up. And that kind of emotional manipulation chips away at confidence. It creates confusion in people who genuinely wanted to help. Many members shared similar stories of feeling emotionally drained after interactions with person A. Some describe how conversations would shift from casual to deeply personal within minutes, often involving trauma dumping without consent. Emotional vulnerability should never be forced, and yet it felt like a tactic to create false closeness. This kind of behavior isn't always easy to recognize at first, but the pattern is unmistakable. Conversations that start as support turn into tests of loyalty. Asking questions became a risk. Setting boundaries became a betrayal in their eyes. Emotional manipulation online is particularly dangerous because it's hard to track. There are no tone indicators in text, no facial expressions. It relies on creating a subtle power imbalance. People felt pressure to reply immediately, comfort them constantly, or defend them publicly. If they didn't, they were fake, abandoning, or uncaring. One member told me they felt like they were always on call emotionally for someone who never gave the same energy back. These aren't healthy relationships. This is control disguised as connection. What's worse is how person A would twist past experiences to silence criticism. Whenever their behavior was questioned, they would bring up trauma, deflect, or claim persecution. It's valid to struggle. But struggling does not excuse manipulation. Everyone deserves support, but support doesn't mean enabling harmful behavior. Several members reported feeling gaslit when they tried to set boundaries. That's not okay. Mental health challenges deserve compassion, but not at the cost of others' well-being. Communities need to normalize checking in with each other about how interactions feel, not just what was said. If someone feels manipulated, that experience matters. Emotional harm doesn't always leave visible scars, but the damage is real. Moving forward, we've implemented server-wide reminders about mutual respect in all DMs and conversations. We're building a culture of consent and communication. If you're constantly unsure where you stand with someone, if talking to them feels like walking a tightrope, it might be manipulation, not miscommunication. Speak up. Your boundaries are valid. Chapter 4, Broken Boundaries and Emotional Manipulation. Online communities thrive on trust, empathy, and boundaries. But what happens when those boundaries are crossed repeatedly under the guise of friendship? Person A exhibited behaviors that often blurred emotional lines in conversations, especially in DMS and voice chats. At first, their messages seemed caring, even supportive. But over time, patterns of guilt tripping, passive aggression, and manipulative silence begins to emerge. When confronted, they would often deflect by making the other person feel guilty for bringing it up. And that kind of emotional manipulation chips away at confidence and creates confusion in people who genuinely wanted to help. Many members shared similar stories of feeling emotionally drained after interactions with person A. Some describe how conversations would shift from casual to deeply personal within minutes, often involving trauma dumping without consent. Emotional vulnerability should never be forced, and yet it felt like a tactic to create false closeness. This kind of behavior isn't always easy to recognize at first, but the pattern is unmistakable. Conversations that start as support turn into tests of loyalty. Asking questions became a risk. Setting boundaries became a betrayal in their eyes. Emotional manipulation online is particularly dangerous because it's hard to track. There are no tone indicators in text, no facial expressions. It relies on creating a subtle power imbalance. People felt pressured to reply immediately, comfort them constantly, or defend them publicly. If they didn't, they were fake, abandoning, or uncaring. One member told me they felt like they were always on call emotionally for someone who never gave the same energy back. These aren't healthy relationships. This is control disguised as connection. What's worse is how person A would twist past experiences to silence criticism. And whenever their behavior was questioned, they would bring up trauma, deflect, or claim persecution. It's valid to struggle, but struggling does not excuse manipulation. Everyone deserves support, but support doesn't mean enabling harmful behavior. Several members reported feeling gaslit when they tried to set boundaries. That's not okay. Mental health challenges deserve compassion, but not at the cost of others' well-being. Communities need to normalize checking in with each other about how interactions feel, not just what was said. If someone feels manipulated, that experience matters. Emotional harm doesn't always leave visible scars, but the damage is real. Moving forward, we've implemented server-wide reminders about mutual respect in all DMs and conversations. We're building a culture of consent in communication. If you're constantly unsure where you stand with someone, if talking to them feels like walking a tightrope, it might be manipulation, not miscommunication. Speak up, your boundaries are valid. Chapter 5, fabricated identities and false narratives. Person A didn't just mislead others through age confusion. They often crafted entire personas depending on their audience. These weren't simple profile changes or rebrands. They were elaborate identities created to manipulate people in different circles. And in some spaces, Person A claimed to be a content creator with a large following. In others, they were a struggling artist, a misunderstood outcast, or a rising influencer. These characters would change overnight, confusing and exhausting those trying to build a genuine connection. The danger of false narratives isn't just deception, it's erosion of reality. People were gaslit into doubting their memory, their instincts, and even their friendships. Multiple individuals described how Person A would speak negatively about others behind their backs, only to praise them publicly. This behavior created a network of tension and distrust. Friend groups were split, projects were abandoned, and honest conversation became landmines. Some of these fabrications extended to family history, trauma stories, and even medical conditions. While it's critical to approach these topics with sensitivity, it's also important to recognize patterns of exaggeration and exploitation. Trauma is not a shield for abuse. Authenticity is not optional in community spaces. It's the foundation of safety. When someone uses fictitious struggles to avoid responsibility or gain sympathy, they invalidate the experiences of others who are genuinely suffering. Trust online is fragile, and in the absence of face-to-face accountability, it can be broken with a single lie. That's why documentation matters. When people began comparing notes, the truth unraveled. Screenshots of conflicting statements, voice chats with contradicting stories, patterns that became impossible to ignore. Person A's credibility wasn't lost overnight. It eroded slowly, piece by piece. Communities must learn from this, vet leadership carefully, encourage verification without shame, and create a culture where honesty is rewarded, not exploited. False identities hurt more than just reputation. They fracture communities from the inside. If someone constantly reinvents themselves to fit the moment, that's not growth. That's manipulation, and it has consequences. Chapter 6, Deflecting Accountability with Victimhood. One of the most persistent behaviors we saw from Person A was their refusal to take responsibility for their actions. Whenever called out, whether for lying, stealing, or manipulating, they would pivot into narrative of victimhood. So suddenly the conversation wasn't about their behavior, but how others were bullying them. This tactic derailed real accountability and shifted sympathy away from the people they hurt. Playing the victim is a powerful deflection tool. It turns a community's natural empathy into a weapon. Members who tried to resolve issues privately were accused of harassment. Moderators enforcing rules were painted as tyrants. Even people sharing their experiences were told they were attacking Person A. These emotional sleights of hand allowed them to avoid responsibility for months. It's crucial to distinguish between real harm and manipulative narrative spinning. Everyone deserves a chance to explain, but explanations are not excuses. Being hurt by someone doesn't justify hurting others, and yet that's what Person A did repeatedly, weaponizing pity while continuing to harm those around them. It created a cycle where confronting them felt cruel, even when it was necessary. We must talk about the difference between being called out and being attacked. A call out seeks growth. An attack seeks harm. Person A blurred that line deliberately. They treated every correction like a personal betrayal. And in doing so, they shut down conversations that could have helped them grow. This refusal to reflect only deepened the divide between them and the community. In online spaces, we need to be more emotionally literate. Recognize when someone is deflecting, not apologizing. Learn to hold space for complexity without letting manipulation thrive. And most importantly, don't be afraid to walk away. If someone uses their suffering to silence others, they are not healing. They're harming. And your voice still matters. Chapter 7. Repeated boundary crossing and obsessive behavior. Person A's inability to respect boundaries became increasingly disturbing over time. Repeatedly joining voice chats uninvited, DMing people after being asked not to, tracking what others were doing in unrelated servers. These weren't isolated incidents. They were consistent violations of personal space. Many members reported feeling surveilled or controlled. It was as if Person A had to know everything, be involved in everything, and control everyone. In one example, they created fake accounts to monitor people who had blocked them. In another, they demanded to know what was said in private conversations. This obsessive behavior created a climate of fear. People second-guessed every move they made. And instead of enjoying the community, they were constantly calculating how to avoid confrontation. This is not normal. It's not healthy. And it's not okay. Boundaries exist to protect emotional safety. When someone bulldozes over those limits, they're not trying to reconnect. They're trying to dominate. Person A's actions made people afraid to engage. They turned shared spaces into battlegrounds. And that is never acceptable. Moderators eventually had to step in with strict boundary enforcement. Block lists were updated. Channel permissions were reviewed. And people were empowered to say no without guilt. That shift allowed healing to begin. But it also highlighted just how damaging boundary violations can be when left unchecked. So if someone doesn't take no seriously, they're not just being annoying. They're being abusive. Everyone deserves digital peace. Everyone deserves space. And no one should feel monitored just for existing in a community. Respect, boundaries, period. Chapter 8, false accusations and manipulated screenshots. One of the most alarming tactics Person A employed was falsifying evidence. This included editing screenshots, misrepresenting conversations, and weaponizing context to paint others in a bad light. In multiple instances, they accused others of saying things they didn't say. When asked for proof, they presented cropped or altered images. This kind of manipulation is not only deceptive, it's dangerous. False accusations ruin reputations. They sow distrust. They pit people against each other, and they take attention away from real issues. Several members of our server faced backlash because of these fake screenshots. It wasn't until full transcripts or screen recordings were revealed that the truth came out. But the damage had already been done. Manipulating evidence is a serious breach of trust. It's not a misunderstanding. It's a calculated effort to deceive. And when someone lies to gain sympathy or punish others, it poisons the entire community. That's why documentation and transparency are so important. When in doubt, ask for full context. Look for metadata. Confirm timelines. We've since created a secure evidence channel. All reports are now reviewed by multiple moderators with logs attached. This system isn't perfect, but it's already prevented future misrepresentation. It's also helped rebuild trust. Because if people don't believe your receipts, your whole credibility is compromised. The truth is not subjective when it comes to screenshots. Editing them to frame someone else crosses every ethical line. And if you ever feel tempted to twist the truth, ask yourself why. Real justice doesn't need lies, and real communities don't tolerate false narratives. Chapter 9, Patterns of Escalation and Control. Control often starts small. A request here, a demand there. Before you know it, someone like Person A is dictating who you can talk to, where you can post, and how you spend your time. Several members noticed how Person A gradually inserted themselves into every corner of their online lives. It began with simple suggestions and turned into surveillance-like behavior. Their goal wasn't just connection, it was domination. The more they were challenged, the tighter they gripped. Escalation came in emotional waves. First came the guilt trips, then came the blow-ups. People who tried to disengage were met with sudden aggression, accusations, smear campaigns, and emotional blackmail. If you stopped replying, you were fake. If you set a boundary, you were abusive. These patterns were designed to keep people trapped in fear and confusion. And it worked until it didn't. Eventually, members began talking. And once the pattern was visible, it couldn't be ignored. One person can't control a whole community, not unless the community lets them. That's what made Person A's tactics so effective. They relied on silence, on isolation, on convincing everyone that no one else understood what was happening. But the moment people compared notes, the truth spilled out. Everyone had experienced the same things: the possessiveness, the manipulation, the escalation. It wasn't just them, it was a pattern. To break control, you need collective strength, and that's what we found. People banded together, shared their stories, and created a support network. Suddenly, Person A's tactics lost power. They couldn't divide people anymore. The community rallied around transparency and accountability. And slowly, the healing began. Because nothing breaks control like the truth. If someone tries to make your life smaller, if their presence adds fear instead of peace, that's not friendship. That's control. And it's okay to walk away. Your peace matters more than their presence. Chapter 10, Rebuilding Trust and Moving Forward. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. Our community had to confront the aftermath of Person A's actions: fractured friendships, lost confidence, and emotional fatigue. But with awareness comes the opportunity for growth. We didn't just want to move on, we wanted to move forward, wiser, stronger, and more united. So we took steps. We implemented new rules, transparent mod logs, clear boundaries for DMS, regular mental health check-ins. We started empowering people to speak up, ask for help, and call out manipulation without fear. We made our community not just safer, but healthier. Healing doesn't happen overnight, but every policy, every conversation, every act of support has brought us closer to it. What matters now is accountability, not just for the past, but for the future. We've learned the red flags. We've seen what unchecked behavior can do. And we're not going to let it happen again. With Person A's actions, taught us the importance of vigilance, but they also reminded us of our strength. Communities are built on trust, and when that trust is restored, they become unbreakable. Moving forward means holding space for honesty and growth. It means recognizing harm and choosing repair. We may never get apologies. We may never get closure, but we do have each other, and that's enough. To anyone who's ever been manipulated, gaslit, or silenced, You are not alone. Your story matters and your voice is powerful. Speak up, heal, reclaim your space. Together, we rise.